Hi, this is a video tutorial for GBC's StratPlan application. Just a short overview of how to use each page and to give an idea of how to get from the beginning to the end and to move on to the analysis. So to start off with, I've already made an example company, just given it a logo. I have given it a place to be saved on the site. You do this on the previous page, but it's all very straightforward, so there's not much necessity to go through that. So from here, I'm just going to click on the next button down the right hand bottom corner, which will take me to home. In the home page, you'll see the StratPlan, basically the map, how you go from the beginning to the end, each step that's involved. For the sake of this, we're not going to click any of these and go straight to those pages. We're just going to click next and go through step by step. So on the next page, we have our vision statements. This is the first of the input stage, the data input. As you can see, I've just put in a little bit of an example of what would need to go in there for a vision statement. It would just be anything that you would need. A good idea to take a look at the example statements up above to get an idea of what would be needed. Mine is just basically for testing, just to demonstrate that what text can go in there. Underneath that, you'll see the principles which apply to this particular vision statement. You'll see here, as I select particular ones, the scale of the top here changes. So each one of these principles reflects whether my vision statement is alarmingly weak or extremely strong, and as I change, it will affect that differently. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take out a couple, leave this as it is for the sake of the example, and just going to continue forward. Exactly the same functionality for mission statements. Make sure to take a look at the top in the hints and the examples. I'm just going to fill in an example again. Select a few of the principles, and as you can see, the scale changes based on what I've selected. Let's move on to next. Value statements, exactly the same functionality as the previous two pages. So I'm just going to put in another example. Select a few of these principles and move on. Next. Okay, so on our next page, we're looking at company objectives. So here, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to list out all of the objectives based on each of these particular headings here. So what you'll do on the right hand side, press Add New, enter in the information for your objective. So I'm just going to put in example objective. If I can spell it, there we go. So example objective. You can add in as many as you wish, and if you want to delete it, click on the right hand side where the cross is, and then click yes when the window comes up. So I'm just going to add in another one as well for customer objectives. I'm not going to put in too much information for the sake of this tutorial. I just want to keep it moving. Once you've added in all of your objectives to each section, go down to the bottom here. What you're going to do is you're just going to analyze your objectives that you've just input. So are they specific? Are they realistic? Are they time-based? Fill it in. Just select each one as you see necessary based on what you put in above, and you'll see that the scale underneath that increases with the more that you put in. So now I'm just going to move on. Let's click next. Next, we're at macro environment analysis. This page here is just a linking page. It just gives an idea of how it works. What we're focusing on is the outer ring. If you select any one of the buttons in the outer ring, it will take you to the next page and open up that section for you. So, for instance, if I wanted to go to political factors, I click on that, it takes me to the next page, and it will open up that section for me. For the sake of the tutorial, I'm just going to hit next and start from the beginning. Political factors. So in this page, what we're going to do for each factor, we're going to select whether it has a positive impact or a negative impact, and you do it through political, economical, socio-cultural, technological, environmental, and legal factors. So I'm just going to select a few for the sake of the tutorial from not all of the sections, just from a couple. Don't want to import too much data. And then I'm just going to move on. So once you're done with that, just press next, and you move on to 5 forces analysis, which is relatively similar structure. We've got the page with this image. It shows what each section is on the next page. If you select this section, if you select a particular section, it will take you to the next page and open it up for you. So I'm just going to hit next and go through. So for this page, it's a similar concept. So we're going to be selecting for each factor. We're going to be selecting whether there are factors that reflect in a strong competitive pressure, or factors that will be resulting in a weak competitive pressure. One thing to note is to take a look at the bottom while I'm changing these factors or selecting them. So I'm just going to select a few for substitute. So make sure you're focusing on the left-hand side in that bottom bar. If I click a couple, you can see now that substitute products has become strong. Now, if I go to the next section in weak and I select a few here, it's going to go back down to moderate. If I go back up, unselect a few from strong, you'll see now that it's gone down to weak. So everything that you select here will have an impact on your summary, which you'll see later on. But it's just to make sure that you're looking at these factors and that they're definitely applying to your business and how it works. So I'm just going to go through for the sake of this tutorial. I'm just going to click a few, make sure that they're all correct. Well, not correct, sorry. Just make sure that some of them are all filled out so we see in the analysis at the very end. Select these, click on these. Click on a couple of those. So you can see now I've got a couple of different selections from in my analysis at the very bottom. I'm happy with this. I'm going to move on to the next step. Okay, so in the next step we're looking at our strategic group maps. So this is basically we are graphically putting your company in its competitive position, seeing how much of the market it affects, and we're going to take a look at some of the competitors. So in our situation, I'm just going to add in one. Actually, I'll add in two. So I'm just going to put in test company as my second one. And I'm going to put in example company 2. Okay, so over the right hand side here, we're just going to select a few options. So what you want to look at is you want to look at the price, perceived quality, and image. So let's say that our company, we have a medium price to quality in our product. We're looking at geographic market scope. We're going to say basically it's outlining how much does your business affect. So we're going to say for us we're going to go regional, and we're going to say we take up 25% of that market share. For example, company 2, we're going to say that they have a low, they take up regional as well, and we're going to say that they're on 15%. For the next company, we're going to say that they are on I, they have a national market scope, and they've got 50% of that market scope. So now, as you can see down the bottom here, we've got some. It has updated with our graphical. It's given a graphical representation of where our company sits, and as well as our competitors. So you can see here, based on the percentage that we put in, based on the price, perceived quality and image, and our geographic market scope, where its position is, and how much of that it affects. So I'm just going to move on from here, but it's good analysis for seeing in terms of your market where your company is sitting. Okay, so much like the macro analysis, we have our key competitor analysis, which has the image. You select the particular box on the image, and it will take you to the next page and open up that section. For the sake of this, I'm actually going to select current strategies. Just to demonstrate, I'm going to go back. I'm going to click on capabilities, and now, as we see, it's open up capabilities instead of current strategy. So for each one of these sections, you just need to fill in a text box relating to the question that's just above the text box. But I'm just going to put an example for some of these, because we don't need to put in this information for the sake of this tutorial. Always good to read the hints at the top to make sure that you have an understanding of what each page means. or what it requires. Now I'll move on. Okay, so next we have the drivers of industry change. Now there is a lot of information that has to go into here. So if I just expand one of these sections, you can see what I'm talking about. They're all just checkboxes, so it's relatively simple to process through. So make sure you're just selecting the relevant things to your company. So for each section, make sure you're reading the hints to understand how it works as well. In addition to each section, you can not only can you select what's already here, but you can add in your own aspects as well. So your own drivers. So let's just say I'm just going to put an example again that automatically is ticked from when I've selected it, and now when I go towards the analysis at the other end, it'll give me that choice as well. Okay, so I'm just going to go through, select a couple of these, just so that we can see how it works. And then now I'll just say that we have completed it. So once you've completed this section here, what we're going to do is we're going to move down the bottom of this page. We're going to take a look at these questions. Now these questions are very detrimental to the analysis part at the very end, and it helps to reflect the choices that you made as part of your drivers of industry change. So make sure that you read the questions, make sure that you answer them truthfully, and that they reflect your drivers really. So for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just going to pick out a couple random ones, but you'll see how these reflect in the end as well. So I'm going to hit next now and move on to SWOT analysis. Now SWOT analysis, very much like the previous page, a lot of checkboxes for you to tick, each one relating to a different aspect of your business. So we're looking at the first section, political strength and competitive assets. Just make sure you're selecting the relevant checkboxes here. So let's just select a couple, and on the right hand side here you can see that there is add new, where you can add in your own assets. You can add in your own potential strengths and competitive assets. So here I'll just put an example just so that we can see it later on, and I'm just going to select a couple for the sake of this tutorial. And move on. Okay. Now we're at industry key success factors. So again, this section here has a lot of data that needs to go into it. They're all text boxes, so you'll be typing out generally sentences or paragraphs, however you feel, but whatever you can put in, whatever you want. So I can just put in an example. Or if I can spell example, I can just put in a whole bunch of gobbledygook. I can put in as much as I want, whatever I want. You can list things. It's totally up to you what you put in, but there is no restriction on each of these. So I'm just going to fill it in with some gobbledygook information, data, and move on. Okay, so now we're looking at our industry outlook. So this is part of the analysis component of what we're doing for StratPlan. So here a lot of the information that we've put in is brought back to us, and we're taking a look and we're analyzing and we're reflecting on what we've done. So I'm just going to, on the top left hand corner here, you'll see that there's an expand all button. I'm just going to hit that so we can see everything in one go. So I'm just going to take a quick look, and you can see a few familiar aspects of each section. So primarily at the top here, we're looking at our pestle analysis, and this is literally what we've selected from our pestle analysis right at the beginning, or close to the beginning. These are the ones that I just selected at random, but when you go through it, obviously they're going to be a bit more relevant. Here we have our summary of 5 forces. So these were the outcomes of the selections that we made in the 5 forces analysis. We can see each section and how they've reflected to our business. You have the summary of industry driving forces model, which is the questions at the bottom of the industry driving forces model. And lastly, we have our competitor analysis. Now, so what we have here is we just have 2 scales that we can change as we need. So ideally, what we're just wanting to do, does each company control a stronger market position than rivals? How well does the company's current current strategy deliver on the key success factors. So what you're doing is you're reflecting on all the companies that you were comparing against, and you're just selecting yourself based on the strength of how positive you are, or how strong you are, or how weak you are in comparison to the others. So just for this section, I've just selected a 50% for both. I'm going to hit next. When you hit next, it's just a confirmation message just to say make sure that you've reviewed all this information. So I'm just going to hit yes, and it'll move me on. Okay, so now we're at SWOT conclusion. Much like the previous analysis page, SWOT conclusion is also an analysis page. It's bringing back our we're going back through our SWOT analysis, which we did a few steps ago, and we're taking a look at our selections. Obviously, mine was all random and didn't make a lot of sense. But when you're going through, it's going to make a much more relevant. It's going to be much more relevant to you. And you can see in the top left here, it's even got my example, the one that I inputted in myself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to select on the scale here. So we've got some conclusions. This here you can change yourself. So what we're going to be doing, what you're going to be selecting is basically on a scale, where does your company sit in terms of attractiveness, and how people view you or view your company. So we're just going to select basically 50% just for the sake of this tutorial. What are the attractive and unattractive aspects of the company's situation? So both of these are just text boxes, so you can put in whatever you want. So I can put in gobbledygook, enter, just a bit of random information, and over here I might just put in, oops, and here I'm just going to put in a bit more, slightly less random data, but you get the picture. Obviously, this will reflect more upon your business when you're filling it out. The next step over here on the right hand side, we have implications for improving company strategy. Now what this is a listing, much like the other previous steps where you've had to add in your own. What we're going to do, I'm going to add in new. We have an objective, we just write it out. Example objective. That's just going to put in do something. You can put in as many as you want, and then with each one you can just delete it by clicking on the right hand side here. I'm just going to leave it at 1 for the sake of ours, and if I hit next, it's going to bring up our internal strength test. Now the internal strength test page is looking at what strategy you're going to continue on with for the rest of StratPlan, and how you're going to incorporate that into your business. So the selections at the top here are going to help to identify which strategy is best for you. So as you can see, if I select a couple here from cost leadership, it's going to highlight the cost leadership page. Sorry, the cost leadership section. If I go down to differentiation and I select more from differentiation, it's going to bring up this differentiation strategy. So if I untick a couple from differentiation, it's going to go back to cost leadership. So it's going to take the most. So cost leadership and differentiation are both separate. They're both on separate lines. Depending on which one you have more of, it will go to that. Now focus works in tandem with differentiation and cost leadership. So if you have a lot selected in focus, what it's going to do is it's going to move you down into the focus strategy for the strategy that it's going to move you down into the focus strategy for the broad strategy that you selected above. So in this case, we had cost leadership strategy. Now we're going into a focus strategy for low cost. If I had gone more with differentiation, so if I click more again with differentiation, it's going to move me into the focus strategy for differentiation. Just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to continue on with differentiation, but you would select based on your business and your strengths, you would select your strategy based on that. So I'm just going to click on next, move on, press yes, so I'm happy for that. And now we can see that there are a couple of strategies here, a couple of questions that will be asked for this particular strategy. So what you'll do is you'll answer these questions. If you answer enough of them, you'll be able to move on. You can even add in your own. So you can add in your own appeals to this particular strategy. We'll say this is appealing for whatever reason. If you have enough of these selected, you'll be able to move on to next. If you don't have enough selected, you'll have to go back and reselect your strategy, redo the strength test in order to select your strategy. So just for the sake of this, I'm going to continue on with the focus. Yes, thank you. I'm just going to tick a few more of these so it opens up my next step, and I'm going to click on next on the right hand corner. Fantastic. Okay, so from here we've got our generic strategies. So what we're doing here, we're literally selecting our the strategies that we're going to be incorporating into our business. So each one of these, you pick, it has a perspective related on the right hand side. Much like previous steps, all you're going to be doing is going through and clicking on checkboxes. For this step, a lot of checkboxes, there are a lot here. And in particular strategies, you might want to add your own. You might want to add in your own strategy for each section. So I'm just going to put in example strategies. So this is improved supply-related value chain activities. So example, get to know supplier. And in terms of perspective, what I'm going to be doing, so that would be more, I would say probably something like talent to teamwork. Maybe you might have a different perspective of that. But what you're going to do, so for each section, you want to select a few strategies. So let's go through. We'll select a couple. We'll go down here, select a few more strategies. And once you hit other strategies, this is totally free for all. So you can put in whatever you want. So I'm just going to add new. I'm just going to put an example. And I'm going to go, this is a good strat. And I'm going to say in terms of perspective, it is internal process. And now I'm going to continue onward. Okay, so next, we're moving on to our strategy map. Now, for you, this will be a lot more detailed. There'll be a lot more information here. So, as you can see, we've got a couple of, we've got some details here that we inputted in earlier. So we have our vision statements, we have our mission statement, we have our values. We've got our customer and financial objectives that we put in a little bit earlier. There's also the internal process and the talent and teamwork information we put in earlier as well. But I didn't put any of that information in because for the sake of this tutorial, just didn't need it. So from this step on, we've selected our statements. If you filled up all three statements, you'll find that they've got different strengths. This is all coming from the scale. But we only filled in one, so that's all we're going to focus on. Now I'm just going to move next. Oh, and another quick thing to note is that at this point you can also start emailing this information. So if you click on email, you can enter an email address. It'll generate a PDF for you, which will be sent to you so that you can reflect on a PDF, so maybe a bit more hard paper for you to analyze, write notes on if you need. I'm just going to hit on next, go to the next step. Now we're going to look at our strategic plan. At this step, so again, a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of thought process goes into this step about how you're going to progress through your business. I'm just going to give a very brief overview, very, very basic, but when you get into yourself, you're going to find there's a lot more detail, a lot more information. So what I'm going to look at the top left here, first of all, you can see that we have our mission, values, and vision statements. We have our business objectives. So this is a collation of all of the objectives that we might have put in earlier. I only put in 2, of course. And next we have our strategic objectives as well, which is a list of all the objectives that we put in under generic strategies. Underneath here, you'll see that we've got all of our strategic objectives listed out, which underneath we can fill in action plans. So I'm not going to fill in all of it, and I'm going to be very, very vague, very basic, but I'm just going to add in new for this one, for the very top one. So you can see there's the details here. It gets a bit cut off because it's so big, but I'll just add in a few more. So I'm just going to say example plan. I'm going to say that I'm the lead, so JM, put in my initials. I'm going to say this is covered to cover 2016. So my measure of success is how well did it work. I know that's totally silly, but just for the sake of tutorial. weight tracking. So in this section here, what we're looking is how much does it affect. So if you were to give your in this entire, so maybe out of 100 or whatever, how much does this weight to completing that, to completing this particular strategic objective. So let's just say out of everything, we've got a 25%. We've got a 25 weighting on it, and in terms of completion, so how complete is this particular objective? I'm going to say it is 50% complete. Now for the next step, I'm going to go example plan 2. I'm going to say this is going to be done for 2018. How well did it work? Let's just say, did it make us money? I know, completely irrelevant, but still, you get the point. Let's put in a weight tracking of, let's say, 50. We'll put in a complete. So this one here is only 20%. Now, what you'll do for each and every one of these strategic objectives, you will fill it in. So if we click next, if we click on add new next one, we'll do the exact same process. So you go through and you'll basically create an action plan for this. You'll go all the way down the bottom. There's a lot here because of how many strategic objectives we selected. So you just keep on going and you'll fill in the rest. But for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just going to ignore most of it and I'm going to hit next and move through. So what you can see here now is we have our strategic objective. It's given us an average of the completion, so how far towards it. So let's just say, so we've got our 2 actions over on the right hand side here. The first one is 50% complete. Our second one is 20, so on average it is about 30% complete. So overall this strategic objective is about 30% complete. In terms of our overall achievement, that's not great. So that's pretty average. The more you complete it, it will change, go from red. This light here will go from red to yellow to green. And as you're progressing through, it'll give a trend. So generally there might be an up arrow or a down arrow or nothing at all to say that there is no current trend. If it's up arrow saying you're going in a good upward trend, means you're getting more done as you're progressing through, or it'll give a down arrow which will say no, you're not making any progress. In fact, you're going backwards. So that will that's one thing to avoid. On the top here, you see that we've got little speedometers or odometers to show that how far progress you are. So you've got a progress bar. You've also got the odometers up here. Excuse the cutting off. This is just my screen. It's not very good for. I had to use this screen for recording, and it's cutting off a lot of the aspects, but yeah, so that's you can measure the progress and you get a very graphical interpretation of how far you've gone through your action plan. On the left hand side here, you can see that there's a scorecard year. You can select that and it will demonstrate the different objectives that you completed or how far they are throughout different points. So the more you select, the more you change it around, it will show things. If I had a lot more detail, you'll see that much more. You'll see that reflected a bit better. But because I don't have a lot of information in there, it's not gonna really work for me. But when you're going through it, you're going to see much more of a change, and you'll see these trends appearing, and you'll see different things are completed at what time, and you'll get an outline of when you think things are going to be done, and you'll be able to get a measure of how far progressed into your strategy you're getting, and how far you are to achieving your objective and making your business far more sustainable. So in terms of functionality and progress through the system, this is about it. Just a couple more points that I will bring up. Throughout any point of the of StratPlan, you can, up in the top right hand corner, you can save your progress. You can save as. It's much like how you would in Word or Excel. You can create a copy of it, or you can just save over the top of what you've already done. In certain parts, you can press print, which will generate a PDF of the particular screen that you're on, and then you can send it to your printer and print it off. And there's also the help button up in the top right corner here, which will, when you click, it will take you to a link to YouTube, where you can view one of GBC's videos that help you talk about the different steps of StratPlan and how to make your own strategic plan and how to look at your objectives and how to progress through them. There's a lot of information, great videos that you want to take a look at. And as well, I know I mentioned before, but there's always the email button. This will occur at only at particular points. But when you hit on email, you can put in your email address, and you will send an email to whoever you put in, and they will get a PDF of whatever your screen is at that point of time. So for the sake of for this, I'm just going to head back home now, where I'm going to complete. Once you head back home, if you saved, and when you load StratPlan back up, you can go to particular points throughout the throughout StratPlan. So let's just say I can hit on pestle analysis, takes me back to pestle analysis. I can come back, I want to go to my strategic plan, it takes me to my strategic plan. So I'm going to head back home now. So this is a good navigation point, and it also gives you an idea of how everything works by taking a look at the steps itself. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope this was informative. For any further queries, please contact the guys at GBC. They'll be able to give you a much better overview and give you much more detail as necessary. So thank you for now, and so yeah.